My name is Hannah Gonzalez, and at 32, I thought I knew everything about family loyalty. Growing up as one half of a twin set meant sharing everything: birthdays, friends, secrets, and eventually a cramped two-bedroom apartment in downtown Portland where my brother Marcus and I had been roommates for the past 3 years. Marcus wasn't just my twin. He was my closest confidant, the person who knew my dreams before I even voiced them. When I started my small graphic design business 2 years ago, he was the first person to celebrate with me, popping a bottle of cheap champagne in our tiny kitchen while I showed him my first client contract on my laptop screen. "Hannah's going to be famous," he'd said, raising his plastic cup with that crooked grin that made us look so obviously related. "I'm calling it now." Our family had always been tight-knit, maybe too tight-knit. Sunday dinners at our parents' house were mandatory, not optional. Mom would set the table for 6. Herself, Dad, Marcus, me, and our younger siblings, Catherine and Austin. The conversations always followed the same pattern: work updates, relationship status checks, and gentle interrogations about our life choices disguised as caring concern. But lately, something felt different during those family gatherings. Conversations would stop when I entered rooms. Marcus would exchange glances with our parents that I couldn't quite read. When I mentioned landing a new client or celebrating a business milestone, the enthusiasm felt forced, like they were all reading from the same script. Last month, during Catherine's birthday dinner, I caught Dad whispering something to Marcus in the hallway. They both went silent when they saw me approaching, Dad clearing his throat and asking about my latest project with an overly bright smile. Marcus just nodded along, but his eyes wouldn't meet mine. The strange behavior wasn't limited to family dinners. Marcus had started spending more time on his phone, typing messages with an intensity that seemed out of character. When I joke about him having a secret girlfriend, he'd laugh it off, but there was something hollow about it. He'd close his laptop quickly when I walked into our shared living space, claiming he was just browsing social media or checking work emails. Even our usual easy conversations had become stilted. We'd always been the type of siblings who could talk for hours about nothing, but now our exchanges felt careful, measured. He'd ask about my business with what seemed like genuine interest, but I started noticing how he'd probe for specific details: client names, project timelines, pricing strategies. At the time, I assumed he was just being supportive, maybe even considering starting his own freelance venture. The first real warning sign came 3 weeks ago when my business phone rang at 11 p.m. The caller hung up without saying anything, but I could hear breathing on the other. It happened twice more that week, always late at night, always silent. When I mentioned it to Marcus, he suggested I change my business number, which seemed like an overreaction for what were probably just wrong numbers. Then my business reviews started getting strange. Not bad reviews exactly, but comments that felt oddly personal, like someone who knew details about my work process that I'd only shared with family. One review mentioned that I seemed distracted during client meetings, which was bizarre because I'd only had one difficult client meeting recently, and I'd only told Marcus about it during one of our late-night kitchen conversations. Standing in our apartment last Tuesday night, watching Marcus quickly minimize a browser window when I walked into the living room, I felt something cold settle in my stomach. The way he looked at me, guilty, defensive, almost angry, was completely foreign. This was the person who'd held my hand during thunderstorms when we were kids, who'd covered for me when I snuck out in high school, who'd helped me move furniture and paint walls when I was too broke to hire help. But as I looked at his face in the blue glow of his laptop screen, I realized I might not know my twin brother as well as I thought I did. Growing up as twins meant Marcus and I shared everything: birthdays, friends, even our first apartment after college. Our parents, David and Catherine Gonzalez, always said we were two halves of the same person, finishing each other's sentences and knowing what the other was, thinking before they said it. That connection had been my anchor through every major life decision, including starting my freelance marketing consultancy 3 years ago. Marcus had been there from day one, helping me set up my home office in the spare bedroom of our shared apartment. He'd assembled my desk, helping choose business cards, and even drove me to my first client meeting when my car wouldn't start. When I was stressed about landing new clients, he'd remind me of all the successful campaigns I'd run during my corporate days. When I doubted my pricing, he'd research competitor rates and show me I was undervaluing myself. "You're brilliant at this, Hannah," he'd say whenever I had a rough day. "These clients are lucky to have you." He protected my privacy fiercely, too. When our cousin Austin Foster started asking pointed questions about my income at family gatherings, Marcus would smoothly redirect the conversation. When our parents worried I wasn't saving enough for retirement, Marcus would assure them I was doing fine without revealing any specifics about my finances. He kept my secrets safe, from the client who paid late for 6 months to the panic attacks I sometimes had before big presentations. Our apartment had become my sanctuary, partly because of that trust. I could leave client files on the kitchen table, take calls in the living room, and discuss strategy ideas out loud without worrying about confidentiality. Marcus understood the freelance life, the feast or famine cycles, the difficult clients, the constant hustle for new business. He celebrated my wins and commiserated during the losses. That's why the changes in his behavior felt so jarring. The Marcus I knew would never make me feel uncomfortable in our shared space, would never make me question whether I could trust him with sensitive information. But over the past month, I'd started moving important documents to my bedroom and taking client calls behind closed doors. The breaking point came last Friday when I discovered something that made my blood run cold. I'd been struggling with a series of negative reviews that had appeared on my business profiles over the past few weeks. They weren't completely fabricated. They referenced real projects and real challenges, but they painted me in an unfairly negative light. One claimed I'd missed deadlines that I'd actually met. Another suggested I'd been unprofessional during a client presentation that had actually gone extremely well. I'd been losing sleep over these reviews, wondering if I'd somehow misread situations or if there were legitimate complaints I'd missed. My business had taken a hit. 2 potential clients had mentioned the reviews during initial consultations, and one had decided not to move. That Friday afternoon, I was working on damage control, trying to figure out how to respond professionally to reviews that felt both accurate enough to be believable and unfair enough to be devastating. Marcus was at work, and I needed to print some documents for a client meeting. My printer was out of ink, so I decided to use his laptop to print from the cloud. When I opened his browser, I found tabs I wasn't expecting. Multiple tabs, actually, all related to my business. My Google business profile, my LinkedIn page, my website's contact form. But what made my stomach drop was the Gmail tab, an account I didn't recognize, with an email address that looked like a potential client name. I knew I shouldn't look, but something compelled me to click. The email account was full of correspondence with review platforms, discussions about reputation management, and drafts of reviews that looked suspiciously familiar. As I scrolled through the sent folder, I found them. Every single negative review that had been posted about my business over the past month. The reviews were written in different styles, posted from different accounts, but they all came from this one email address, Marcus's email address. My twin brother, the person I trusted more than anyone in the world, had been systematically sabotaging my business. I sat there staring at the screen, my hands shaking as I read through his methodical destruction of my professional reputation. He'd created multiple fake personas, each with slightly different writing styles and complaints. He'd timed the reviews to appear organic, spacing them out over weeks. He'd even researched my actual clients and projects to make the reviews seem authentic. The worst part was reading his notes to himself, saved in a document titled H Strategy. He'd outlined my business vulnerabilities, noted which types of criticism would be most damaging, and planned a timeline for maximum impact. He'd written about my overconfidence and my need to be brought down a peg. He documented my client meeting schedules and used that information to time the reviews for maximum damage. One note made me physically sick. She trusts me completely. This will be easy. I printed everything, every email, every review draft, every strategic note. My hands were steady now, moving with the mechanical precision of someone in shock. I saved copies to my own cloud storage and took photos with my phone as backup. Then I closed the laptop and sat in our living room, surrounded by the most profound betrayal I'd ever experienced. When Marcus came home that evening, I was still sitting in the same spot, the printed emails in a neat stack on the coffee table. He walked in chatting about his day, asking about my client meeting, acting like the supportive brother he'd always been. I watched him notice the papers, watched his face change as he recognized what they were. Hannah, I can explain. Can you? I held up the document titled H Strategy. Can you explain why my twin brother, my roommate, the person I trust most in the world, has been systematically destroying my business? The look on his face, caught, defensive, but not particularly sorry, told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't a mistake or a moment of poor judgment. This was calculated, deliberate, and cruel. You don't understand, he started, but I cut him off. I understand perfectly. I understand that while I was losing sleep over these reviews, wondering what I'd done wrong, you were in the next room planning your next attack. As I spoke, I realized the full scope of what he'd done. The late-night phone calls to my business line, that had been him, testing whether I'd answer, gathering information about my schedule. The probing questions about my clients and projects, he'd been mining for material to use against me. Even his suggestion that I change my business number had been manipulation, probably hoping I'd seem unreliable to existing clients. Why? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to hear the answer. Marcus sat down across from me, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of the brother I'd grown up with. But when he spoke, his words revealed a stranger. "You've always gotten everything so easily," he said. "School, jobs, now this business. Everyone always talks about how successful Hannah is, how proud they are of you. Do you know what it's like being your twin and feeling invisible?" I stared at him, remembering all the times I'd celebrated his achievements, all the ways I'd tried to support his goals, all the secrets I'd trusted him with. "So you decided to destroy what I'd built?" "I decided to level the playing field." The casual cruelty in his voice was like a physical blow. This wasn't my brother speaking. This was someone who'd been harboring resentment so deep that he'd planned and executed a campaign to ruin my livelihood. Someone who'd looked me in the eye every day while systematically dismantling my professional reputation. I gathered the printed and stood up. "I'm calling Mom and Dad. And then I'm calling a lawyer." "Hannah, wait." But I was already walking toward my bedroom, my phone in my hand, ready to expose the truth about what my twin brother had done. The phone rang 3 times before Mom answered. "Hannah? It's late, honey. Is everything okay?" I looked at Marcus, who was standing in the doorway of my bedroom, his face pale. "No, Mom. It's not okay. I need you and Dad to come over. There's something you both need to know about Marcus." "What's wrong? Is he hurt?" "He's not hurt, but our family is about to be." I kept my voice steady, though my hands were shaking. "Can you come over now? Both of you." Within 20 minutes, our parents were sitting in our living room. Dad looked confused, Mom looked worried, and Marcus sat in the corner chair like he was preparing for execution. I had the printed spread across the coffee table. "Marcus has been sabotaging my business," I said without preamble. "For months he's been creating fake negative reviews, making harassing phone calls, and trying to destroy my professional reputation." Mom's hand flew to her mouth. "That can't be true." I handed her the printed screenshots. "These are reviews he posted using fake accounts. I traced the IP addresses. They all came from our home network, from his computer." Dad picked up one of the papers, his reading glasses sliding down his nose as he studied it. "Marcus, is this true?" Marcus finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yes." The silence that followed was deafening. Mom started crying. Not the dramatic sobs I'd expected, but quiet tears that somehow made everything worse. Dad just stared at Marcus like he was looking at a stranger. "Why would you do this to your sister?" Mom asked. Marcus launched into the same explanation he'd given me, about feeling overshadowed, about wanting to level the playing field. But hearing him say it to our parents made it sound even more pathetic and cruel. "So you decided to destroy Hannah's business?" Dad's voice was cold in a way I'd never heard before. "You decided to ruin her reputation because you felt jealous?" "It wasn't supposed to go this far," Marcus said. "I just wanted—" "You wanted what?" I interrupted. "You wanted me to fail? You wanted me to lose clients and income? You wanted me to question my own abilities and wonder what was wrong with me?" Mom was reading through the fake reviews, her face growing paler with each one. "These are so cruel, Marcus. How could you write these things about your own sister?" One review in particular had haunted me for weeks. It claimed I'd been unprofessional during a client meeting, that I'd shown up late and unprepared, and that my work was amateur at best. Reading it had made me doubt every interaction I'd had with clients, wondering if there was truth to the criticism. "I need to know the full extent of this," I said. "Every fake account, every review, every phone call. I need a complete list." Marcus looked like he wanted to disappear into the chair. "There were maybe 15 reviews across different platforms. And I called your business line a few times, but I never said anything inappropriate." 15 reviews? Dad's voice rose. "You posted 15 fake negative reviews about your sister's business? Some were on Google, some on Yelp, a couple on industry-specific sites," Marcus admitted. I felt sick. 15 reviews might not sound like much, but for a small business like mine, it was devastating. Each platform's algorithm had started showing my business lower in search results. Potential clients had been seeing these fake reviews and choosing competitors instead. "I'm calling our lawyer tomorrow," Dad said. "This is defamation and it's cost Hannah real money." "Dad, You don't need to, Marcus started. Yes, I do. Dad's tone was final. You've damaged your sister's livelihood. There need to be consequences. Mom was still crying, but now she was looking at me with something that might have been guilt. Hannah, I'm so sorry. If we'd known. How could you have known? I asked. I trusted him. We all did. The conversation continued for another hour, with Marcus alternating between defensive justifications and tearful apologies. Our parents asked questions I hadn't even thought of. How long had he been planning this? Had he considered the legal implications? Did he understand that he could have destroyed my entire career? By the time they left, it was past midnight. Mom hugged me tightly at the door, whispering apologies that weren't hers to make. Dad shook his head as he looked at Marcus one more time. You'll be hearing from our attorney, he told Marcus, and you'll be making this right, whatever it takes. After they left, Marcus and I sat in our living room in silence. The apartment that had been our shared space for 2 years suddenly felt like enemy territory. I'll move out, he said finally. Yes, you will. And I'll contact the platforms, try to get the reviews removed. You'll do more than try. You'll succeed. He nodded, not meeting my eyes. Hannah, I know you probably can't forgive me, but I want you to know that I never meant for it to get this bad. I looked at my twin brother, the person who'd shared a womb with me, who'd been my closest confidant for most of our lives, who'd helped me move into this apartment and celebrated every small victory in my business journey. Now he was a stranger who'd spent months systematically trying to destroy everything I'd worked for. The worst part isn't even the reviews, I said. It's that you looked me in the eye every day while you were doing it. You comforted me when I was upset about my business struggles. You gave me advice about how to handle difficult clients. You were living a complete lie. I know. Do you? Do you really understand what you've done? Marcus finally looked at me, and I saw something that might have been genuine remorse. I've destroyed our relationship. I've hurt you in a way that can't be undone. And I've disappointed our parents. You've also potentially destroyed my business. Some of those clients I lost might never come back, even after the reviews are removed. My reputation in this industry might never fully recover. The weight of that reality was just starting to hit me. Building a business was about more than just doing good work. It was about trust, reputation, and relationships. Marcus had attacked all three, and the damage might be permanent. I'll pay for any lost income, he said. I'll figure out how to make this right, financially. This isn't just about money, Marcus. This is about trust. This is about family. This is about the fact that I'll never be able to look at you the same way again. He nodded, tears finally starting to fall. I know, I've lost my sister, and it's my own fault. As I watched him cry, I felt a complex mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to comfort him. 25 years of being twins doesn't disappear overnight. But a larger part of me felt nothing but cold anger. He'd made his choices, and now we both had to live with the consequences. You have 1 week to move out, I said. And Marcus, if you ever do anything like this again, to me or anyone else, I won't hesitate to pursue legal action. He nodded and went to his room, closing the door quietly behind him. I sat alone in our living room, surrounded by the of his betrayal, and began planning how to rebuild everything he'd tried to tear down. 18 months later, I stood in my new office space, watching the morning sunlight stream through windows that belonged entirely to me. The nameplate on my desk read, Hannah Gonzalez, Digital Marketing Consultant, and beneath it sat a framed certificate. My business had just been recognized as one of the city's fastest-growing marketing firms. The fake reviews were long gone, scrubbed from every platform after our family intervention. More importantly, they'd been replaced by dozens of genuine 5-star reviews from clients who'd experienced my work firsthand. My reputation hadn't just recovered, it had grown stronger than before. Marcus had moved out within the week, just as I'd demanded. He'd found an apartment across town and started therapy, something Mom had insisted on before she'd even consider speaking to him again. We'd exchanged maybe 20 words in the past year and a half, all of them logistical and cold. Dad had been true to his word about consequences. Marcus's trust fund remained frozen, and he'd been removed from any family business decisions. The golden child had fallen from grace, and the family dynamics had shifted permanently. Your 3 o'clock is here, my assistant called through the intercom. I'd hired her 6 months ago when the business grew too large for me to handle alone, a problem I'd never imagined having during those dark days when Marcus was sabotaging everything I'd built. My client was a small business owner whose brother had been spreading rumors about her company online. She'd found me through my website, specifically seeking help from someone who understood family betrayal in business. I help people create strategies to protect their reputation from future family betrayal, I'd written in my bio, and it had become an unexpected specialty. Apparently, I wasn't the only one who'd learned that family could be your biggest threat. As I walked her through the reputation management plan I'd developed, I thought about how much had changed. I'd moved into a one-bedroom apartment downtown, closer to my office, and farther from the memories Marcus and I had shared. I'd built new routines, made new friends, and discovered parts of myself that had been overshadowed by our twin dynamic. Mom called every Sunday, and we'd slowly rebuilt our relationship on more honest ground. She'd admitted that she'd enabled Marcus's behavior for years, always making excuses for him while expecting me to be the responsible one. Dad and I had grown closer too. He'd started asking for my business advice, something that never would have happened when Marcus was still the favored child. The hardest part hadn't been the business, recovery, or even the family drama. It had been learning to trust my own instincts again. For months after discovering Marcus's betrayal, I'd second-guessed every relationship, every business decision, every family interaction. If my own twin could deceive me so completely, how could I trust anyone? But slowly, carefully, I'd rebuilt that trust, starting with myself. I'd learned to recognize the warning signs I'd missed with Marcus, the subtle manipulations and deflections that had kept me from seeing the truth. I'd developed better boundaries, both in business and in family relationships. My phone buzzed with a text from Austin Foster, a college friend who'd become something more over the past few months. We were taking things slowly. I'd been upfront about my trust issues from the beginning, but he'd proven patient and understanding. "Dinner tonight? I promise not to leave any fake reviews about your cooking," the message read, followed by a laughing emoji. I smiled, appreciating that he could joke about it now. It had taken time for me to be able to laugh about any aspect of what Marcus had done, but humor had become part of my healing process. As my client left with her reputation protection plan, I looked around my office one more time. The walls were covered with thank you notes from satisfied clients, photos from business networking events, and my various professional certifications. Everything here was mine, built through my own work and protected by the hard-learned lessons of betrayal. I thought losing Marcus would leave a permanent hole in my life, but instead, it had created space for something better. I discovered who I was without him, what I was capable of when I wasn't constantly managing his emotions and covering for his mistakes. The silence in my life where his chaos used to be wasn't empty, it was peaceful. It was the sound of a life built on my own terms, with relationships based on mutual respect rather than family obligation. My phone rang, and I saw Mom's name on the caller ID. For a moment, I hesitated. Old habits of anxiety around family calls died hard. But when I answered, her voice was warm and proud. "I saw the article about your business in the local paper," she said. "Your father and I are so proud of what you've accomplished." "Thank you, Mom. That means a lot. I know this year has been difficult, but watching you rebuild and thrive, it's shown us the woman you've always been. We just couldn't see it clearly before." After we hung up, I sat in the quiet of my office, feeling something I hadn't experienced in years. Complete peace with my family situation. Not because everything was perfect, but because I'd finally learned the difference between family loyalty and family toxicity. Marcus had taught me that blood doesn't guarantee trustworthiness, but he'd also inadvertently shown me my own strength. I'd survived his worst betrayal and built something better from the ashes. The sun was setting outside my office windows, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I gathered my things, locked up, and headed home to my quiet apartment and my dinner plans with Austin. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't worried about what family drama might be waiting for me, what crisis I might need to manage, or what betrayal might be lurking beneath the surface. It was finally over, and the silence felt earned.